Hello, all, and welcome back to the show. If you were here yesterday, welcome back. If you weren't here yesterday, go watch yesterday's show. It was something. It was certainly something. Today, joining me is, of course, host and co-host Peter.
Good evening, good morning, good afternoon, wherever you are. It was something yesterday, wasn't it? It really was.
It was definitely something.
Mm-hmm.
That sure is what it was. It was very much something. Uh,
Well, and
so
and I got a challenge in the chat, which I was doing while you guys were talking. I made uh uh now I forgot the name in English. A water bear. What's it called?
tardigrade.
A tardigrade warlord for uh Andrew Cumming, and he was very pleased with his warlord. So we might see that somewhere someday. That was a fun project, though. Can you make that? Uh, we have AI. I don't have to do anything anymore. Just type what I want and see what comes up.
That's true. Yeah. And then of course also we have Nestlig, one of my editors.
Hello, good to be back
Hello.
again. I would like to have a tardigrade shogun.
Tardigrade Shogun.
Do you know what a shogun is?
That's
Like a Japanese warrior.
yeah, Japanese warrior.
A Japanese.
I
Yeah.
actually have a tardigrade stuffy. He's over there.
Mhm.
He's up there. He's off screen. Can't see him.
I'll see what I can
but,
do, Neslick, and then we can show it off next time. But
So yeah,
was a
if you
fun
weren't
idea.
here yesterday, we had a creationist on, Robert Groen. I know I mispronounced it, Peter. Sorry.
Groen.
And
Groen.
Dapper and I talked to him, and it was a dumpster fire. It became a dumpster fire. Didn't start out that way. It took a little while, but eventually we got the dumpster fire.
Just a few tiny sparks. Not even a real dumpster fire. It wasn't that bad.
Okay, all right.
And I take full responsibility for the part of the dumpster fire because.
Oh no! You can't take full credit for that. You're
yes,
not allowed.
I had to confront him with his own video. Sorry for that, but I just had to do that.
I mean, I think it was well deserved. I mean, if he was going to lie about what he was saying, then yeah, I mean, obviously, you have to. So let's see who we got today. We have Brian Stevens, Star Song, Majestic P. Beck. We have DM artificially selected Ceratopsian wing, Triceratops, Smitty, Tilting Windmill, Alex Markel. Welcome, everyone. Glad to have you.
Yeah. I have to warn everybody. I may have a fan in chat at some point, and if he can't behave, I will show him the door because he already blocked me on Twitter. After sending the link, he asked for the link, and I sent him the link, and then he blocked me.
Who is that?
Yeah. So I'm not sure. His name is Doc Holiday, and his handle is Real Cock Holiday. So I guess I got cock blocked. I don't know, but that's a first for me. But no. So he was arguing, and the last thing he said that in your thumbnail you forgot the rock
and RJ
because everything in evolution starts out from a rock. So I guess that's his level of intelligence. So yeah.
Well, you know how it is. We have a wild RJ in the chat.
Hey, RJ.
Welcome, RJ. Did you happen to watch the debate yesterday? I don't remember if I saw you in the live chat. I stopped watching the live chat at a point. RJ, were you there? Okay. Well, I saw PZ because he was there at the beginning, and I didn't really interact a whole lot with the chat for most of it. So I sorry. So today though, we're gonna and Jair, hello. Instead
Hey.
of talking with a creationist, we're gonna watch the previous words of a creationist, and that is Deflate, who is we've watched a few of his videos before. So this time he's gonna argue why the tree of life, well, there's a 98% certainty or whatever he says possibility that the tree of life isn't real. The debate we had yesterday on this channel with Robert Groen, it was Dapper and me against him. We had it yesterday. It's fine. So
As I put on Twitter, while we're watching the video with Deflate, people can air their grievances in chat. I'm here for the dad jokes.
He's deflating all of his grievances with
the
Tree of Life.
While we
the chat with the creationist, yes, I caught that. Brutal. Turkey Sloth says, Jackson, you a professional streamer? No, I am not. Typically I stream once a week, but this week I have been on stream three consecutive days. First it was I was on Dapper's show, I was guest starring, and then it was the creationist, and now it's my normal Thursday show. So I guess I've kind of ascended or descended perhaps to professional streamer. I don't know.
I mean, I have done 1 week where we had a show on my channel on Thursday, one on your channel on Thursday. I did another one on Friday, and then Saturday and Sunday on Arn's channel. That was a bit much.
Sheesh.
That was a bit.
Yeah, it sounds like it. I don't like stream myself playing video games and saying slurs or anything like that. So I don't think I'm a professional streamer yet. But maybe one day. We'll see. My ego is not quite big enough for that.
Or just to react to videos without saying anything like XQC.
Oh, like XQC, yeah. Oops. Now we're gonna get like bombed. I'm gonna get carpet bombed by XQC's followers or something. Anyway. Okay, so we ready to jump in to this video?
I'm ready.
All right, well, let's see why we're 98% certain there's no tree of life.
Darwin's tree of life is most likely not a description of how life on Earth emerged and diversified. I know that's a shocker, and yet some scientists go as far as to say that the tree of life has actually been annihilated by an onslaught of negative evidence. Join me for this video to find out why one of the most popular arguments for Darwinian evolution may actually be a non-starter. Hi, my name is Lucas, and welcome to our series on intelligent design and critical thinking about evolution.
I know we just started, we're like 8 seconds in. I apologize. However, I do have to point out, he said some people think that the tree of life is what did he say? Not a description of how life, or of like the origin of life or something like that. And it's like, that's true. The tree of life is just the set of relationships among organisms. It's not a process or encompassing a set of processes. It's literally just the pattern of relatedness. That's all it is. I don't know. He just said it very weirdly. Am I? Yeah. Did you guys also hear that?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's.
Go ahead.
I don't know. I just thought it was really weird. Yeah. Anyway, okay.
Well, what's more disturbing is this series is a partnership between the channel Deflate and Discovery Institute.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not surprised.
I think it's time to deflate. I think it's time to deflate the Discovery Institute. It's not too
I
late
agree.
for that.
The Discovery Institute picks up basically anyone who shills for intelligent design. I mean, they picked up Long Story Short.
Yeah,
I mean, he has his cute little graphics. So there's that.
And I was about to say, like I was like a few moments ago, I was like watching a few minutes of this video, and it heavily reminds me of it's the exact same argument that LSS uses, basically.
Oh, I don't
Almost.
even. Well, I
And
haven't watched this
it,
video.
it comes from the same source, from the DI. It's the same source.
Well, I haven't watched this yet. I never. So for anyone who's watching, I never watch these videos in advance because I don't think they're worth it.
Mhm.
I think between the three of us, we can respond to like all of their, all their arguments. So
Yeah, I don't
I
watch.
don't know.
I don't watch them either. First of all, because I think that the first reaction to some of the things that people say is 9 out of 10 times the best one. But having to endure a video twice is a bit much.
I didn't watch the full video. I only skipped a few sections and to see what the overall
Right.
premises are of the video.
Right, I
I
got you.
just skimmed it a bit through.
I got you.
Only a few minutes before we went live, basically. Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
we can continue. Sorry.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
A short recap on the ground we've covered so far. In the previous 3 videos, we showed how paleontology poses an insurmountable challenge to the theory of evolution. Darwin himself predicted that countless intermediate animal forms must exist within the fossil record, given that organisms gradually evolved from one species into the next. However, what the fossil record actually shows is the exact opposite, namely that whenever new species
should we mention that one of the things that Darwin predicted was found just a couple of years after he published it? Yes. Yep. I mean,
so for there's like a bit of deception. I know, big shock going on when this claim of like there are not countless intermediate transitionals, found in the fossil record. It's like, well, actually there are. We found literally like countless numbers of species of fossil organisms. The issue is, do we find everything that's like, do we find like all the lineages like leading up to speciation events? Typically no, right? And that was Stephen Jay Gould's problem.
It depends on your resolution of the fossil record, yeah.
Right, exactly. For most vertebrates, the answer is going to be no, predominantly because typically vertebrates are buried at such a rate that you don't get that high enough resolution to see like a species transition. You can, it is possible, like Hyopsidas and Haplomylus from the was it Green River Formation, I think. But typically you don't get that. You do get it for like phytoplankton, which is why creationists never talk about them. And there are like some ceratopsians that you also get it for, which is why like in the Chasmosaurine lineage you have this like really nice, like really like I think it's almost anagenetic speciation because it's all just in kind of this one place. And so
there's also I forget the genus name, but there's like a extinct sloth that went to the
Thelassocnus.
sea. Yes, and it also appears to be anagenesis, like you have one species at one time, and then later a different species, and later different species, and it may be a direct ancestor descendant lineage, or it may be not. Or we can't really tell unless we have more fossils.
Right, and Myotragus from the Balearic Islands is another example. It's like an anagenetic lineage. As you go up the strata, you can see like the eyes go from the sides of the head, which is the normal ungulate position, to the front of the head because there are no predators on the island with it. So it like the selection pressure to have eyes on the side of its head relaxed, which is super weird. But yeah, so basically what he's referencing is like Stephen Jay Gould's contention and Niles Eldredge that you typically don't get fossil like speciation events. Now, that's typically the case. They acknowledged fully that you can get some, and even Darwin had some examples like Scalpella arcuatum, which was a barnacle, and as you go up, you can actually see how it changes slightly into a new species. But typically, you don't get that. You don't get that good enough resolution. And of course, Stephen Jay Gould and Niles Eldredge proposed, punctuate equilibrium to kind of help explain this. Like, well, you're looking in the wrong place. Instead of looking here where the ancestral population is, you need to look all the way over here at this peripheral location, which is where this cladogenetic event is going to occur. and that's producing the new species. And so, of course, he misrepresented punctuated equilibrium nonstop in his other video on the topic. So, it's creationism. You know what to expect. We have lots and lots of transitional fossils, and Gould and Eldridge recognized this, but they were not talking about transitional fossils broadly. They were just talking about speciation events in the fossil record, very specifically.
There's also not to mention that all the transitional fossils that we have found since punctuated equilibrium was first proposed by Gould and Eldridge.
Yep.
Yeah.
Also, I want to add that they probably won't talk about plankton because it's plankton, and we all know that all the plankton is just plankton. It's
true.
There are no species. It's the same thing with bacteria. What do they think? That there's
the bacteria kind, obviously.
Yeah, a handful of bacteria because there's no diversification in bacteria. And with plants, they're even worse because you can say, for instance, the food that we make. So corn is a humanly created food. And then they will go, yeah, but it's still a plant. I mean, wait, what?
Right, yeah, it's still just a plant. I mean, ferns, flowers, pine trees, they're all the same. It's
all
fine. Don't worry about it.
Yeah.
Moss,
it's like once you go beyond like maybe even vertebrates or at the very least animals, beyond animals, then everything becomes flat. Like there is no depth to anything.
In most cases, I'd say it's even just barnyard animals. Like once you go past that, it's just over.
On the first guy I debated, which was a Cy ten Bruggencate clone with his own radio station, after 5.5 hours of debating over a few weeks, by the way, not all at once, but the last time I was on, only half an hour, and I made him say out loud on his own radio station that animal was a kind. So then I replied, okay, so no, I had a rowboat with 2 animals on it. That's it. And then I was kicked off. So that's how I learned to talk to people like that. That was fun though. We did 2 hours, by the way, in one show, 2 hours on whether or not an atheist can sit down on a couch before testing it.
Right, because you have to have faith.
Not kidding you.
Right.
2 hours.
Anyway. All right, we can keep going.
Okay.
Here, they do so suddenly and without evidence of precursory forms in the geological record. The most prominent example is the so-called Cambrian explosion, which happened around 530 million years ago, when about 20 animal phyla suddenly showed up on the stage of life out of the...
Hold on.
He's like showing modern animals.
Did you see? Yeah. Do you see the picture? Crocodiles came from the Cambrian
and the hummingbird.
And the hummingbird.
And oh my gosh. We're not doing this again. I'm not doing the Cambrian explosion again. Keep going.
I mean it's hard to find an honest creationist, but this one takes the cake, obviously.
Like many years ago, we did the two-part series on the Cambrian explosion, and this is the first argument that we addressed. Like there were no if you go to the Cambrian, like if you could travel back to the Cambrian, like you wouldn't see anything that is familiar.
Yeah, that was literally the first thing we talked about. Literally the first thing.
No bunnies, no birds, no bats, no
lobsters, no spiders,
no lobsters.
The lobster patriarchy was not in existence yet. Sorry. Yeah, no. Oh my god. Because I have to say it. It's a bait and switch, right? When Stephen Meyer says like the first vertebrates show up in the Cambrian, then he shows you like, well, this is a vertebrate: elephants, humans, hummingbirds, and it's like, does the audience ever bother to like stop and go, wait, so were elephants in the Cambrian? Were lobsters in the Cambrian or spiders? And then obviously they don't ask that because they're just sitting there along for the ride. Or he says, "Oh, arthropods just show up in the Cambrian," and they're all like, "Oh, flies? I guess we're in the Cambrian, millipedes, okay." But like, he doesn't stop to say, "Well, no, I don't mean modern arthropods. I mean arthropods unlike anything that exists today, that were primitive with respect to all arthropods that exist today." Because then they'd be like, "You mean like evolution expects?"
And there were also many STEM groups, and never define what a STEM group is, please, because then no, that is a bit awkward to mention STEM groups to them, because then the whole
Yes.
thing of no transitional species is a bit
Well, because remember,
yeah.
in Darwin's Doubt, Stephen Meyer lists Lobopodia as a phylum, which it isn't. It is a paraphyletic stem or assemblage of stem groups. So like he's trying to chop everything up into its own distinct phylum. Like, Anomalocaris is just an arthropod. Opabinia is just an arthropod. Sancticaris is just an arthropod. And then, whatever. Hallucigenia is just a lobopod. And then later, I don't know. I can't think of any. Hallucigenia is a stem velvet worm, and there were other stem velvet worms in the Cambrian. But it's like, you don't get that. As RJ points out, they never clarify the details of phylogenetics. They're not allowed to, because if they do, then you'll see right through the argument.
Like the term phyla is a bit actually very convenient to them, because it's not defined in the literature, the term phyla, not very specifically. Like it's often defined as like a body plan in general.
Right.
What is a body plan? Oh, it's the set of characteristics associated with the phyla. So it's a bit of a circular thing between body plan and phyla.
It's basically whatever exists today, like the suite of characteristics that defines them is the phylum. So you're right. It's circular in that
it's also
the phylum
and the boundary is also arbitrary.
Today,
Like we could, if we all agree, we can say like, oh, let's expand, let's include arthropods and the onychophorans into one big phyla. Like let's just move the level one up a bit. Like there is nothing that says that it's wrong to say phyla belongs to a different place. That's why phyla is so convenient to them, because then they can do whatever they want with it, with the term, basically. The goalposts can move about.
Katina Packbase says, "Wow, I didn't realize a cooked lobster is a fossil." Yeah. Well, but yeah. If you guys
Jackson,
want, we did have a discussion of the concept of phyla in the Professor Dave video that we co-wrote. So if you want the whole bit on phyla and the Cambrian explosion and Stephen Meyer, just go watch that video. We talk about all of those topics.
Jackson, if I may, you could actually argue that by creationist standards, a cooked lobster is a fossil. You know why?
Why?
Because it came to its end in a catastrophic water event.
Boo.
See what I did there? I mean,
I do.
This was the guy yesterday who said that you only get fossils by worldwide flood.
Well, he did agree when Dapper and I said that some animals die in the desert, and he was like, "Yeah, okay, but most of them were watery."
Yeah.
Anyway,
if you would have pressed him, if you would have pressed him, they would have died in the desert and then were buried during the flood. Pretty much.
Maybe. It's possible.
I mean, well, no.
I think we need to move on, otherwise we won't get to the end of the video. Sorry.
Well, you might be right.
clear blue as it were, but with no intermediate forms from the pre-Cambrian strata. I've also talked about the total of 4 Darwinian attempts to solve the dilemma of the Cambrian explosion and have explained why all of them fail. Check out this playlist up here to get to those videos.
Hey,
Given that no attempt to reconcile...
We watched all those videos and we debunked them. That was fun.
Did you see what he did there? He set the playlist up here and then he pointed at your logo. That's
yes, the playlist up here.
He got one thing right.
I mean, we do go through his whole playlist. That is true.
And you have a playlist of videos about evolution, even on the Cambrian explosion. So he was right. That's disturbing. He was right.
Paleontology with evolutionary theory has succeeded, Darwinian evolutionists have come to admit that the fossil record doesn't fit with their theory, as we will see at the end of this video. For the same reason, they've started to turn their focus towards another field of study in their search for support of evolution: homology and phylogenetic trees. The importance of these two for evolutionary theory cannot be emphasized enough. Also, while lay people who argue for evolution in everyday discussions may not know the term homology, they constantly refer to this concept in making their case, and I'll show you how in a minute. The technical definition of homology is essentially sequences or structures that have a similar relation or position within an organism, corresponding in structure and in origin, but not necessarily in function. This probably seems a bit unclear for now, and it reflects the fact...
Can we go? No, I'm going to disagree. Maybe in some other sense, in biology, typically homology means a structure or sequence that is descended from a common ancestor. That's what homology means. It is not... Peter, are you able to go back a little bit to that definition he provided?
Homology is in contrast to like... what's the technical term again?
To analogy?
Homoplasy.
Or homoplasy, yeah.
Homology is in contrast to homoplasy, yeah.
Yeah, okay, for the play.
Corresponding in structure and in origin, but not necessarily in function.
Okay, yeah, no, that's wrong. No, it's not. They have a similar relation or position. If it were or a similar position, you could argue like the wings of bats and birds are homologous, which is obviously wrong. No, it's a structure or sequence that is descended from a common ancestor. That's what homology means. And what
corresponding in structure and in origin. It should mention common ancestry, because like today that's how homology is defined, in contrast to homoplasy.
Right. Yeah. It seems like he's already trying to deck stack or misdefine terms, as DM artificially selected ceratopsian wing says. So yeah, this is not what...
Is it just me, or so structures that have a similar relation within an organism corresponding in structure? I have no clue what that means.
They're a structure corresponding in structure. I mean, it's obvious.
Sorry, I mean, I thought I could speak English, but I have no clue what that sentence would mean.
I think he is like wording this as vague on purpose, because he wants like, the homology is so vague, it can mean anything, basically.
Right, which it doesn't.
Yeah.
And what are sequences within an organism?
Oh, so like DNA sequences is what he's referring to.
Yeah, that okay.
I think so, yeah.
Okay, didn't think of that.
I think Nestling's right. I think he's trying to set up an extraordinarily vague definition so that he can come down and say, look at how vague this definition is. You were the one who provided it.
Hold on, but you said DNA, but DNA isn't homology, is it?
You can have homologous sequences in species.
Okay.
Yeah, you can have homologous DNA sequences.
And
so like
that's where I keep learning.
So like our I don't know, just offhand, like the genes in chromosome 2, right? The reason that we know that chromosome 2 in humans is the result of a fusion is we can find in sequence all of the homologous genes that we share with chimps, right? But it's, instead of it being on one chromosome for chimps, it's on 2 chromosomes.
But the reason I'm asking is because isn't homology, doesn't that not include DNA?
No, homology can include DNA. It could be homology can include DNA or development or morphology. It can include all of them.
Okay.
But basically,
That's
it's
where
a
I learned
shared characteristic, whether morphological or genetic.
I
It's a
think I
shared
was mixing
via
those two up.
common descent.
Yeah, I think I was mixing up morphology and homology.
I think he's also going to, I'm almost certain he's going to pull the Jonathan Wells argument of they're confusing the diagnosis of homology with the process of diagnosing homology, which is a lie. It's just a lie. It's there's not even...
It's true. It's true that like homology used to be defined. Like I think Richard Owen came up with the term homology, and he obviously did not meant it to say that it refers to a trait shared through common ancestry. But for now, we do define it homology in terms of common ancestry with respect to homoplasy in things. Yeah,
right.
There's no problem. There's no issue with that as long as you're clear with the terms.
Right. Tilting windmill actually provides a really good definition. Homology in biology is similarity of the structure, physiology, or development of different species of organisms based upon their descent from a common evolutionary ancestor. So yeah, that's a good definition. That's much better than whatever this nonsense Deflate's providing.
I'll have to defend Deflate a little bit. Alex Markel said, Peter, your grasp of English is clearly better than his is. Keep in mind, I think he is German, and it's a well-known fact that Germans tend to struggle with English a lot. I don't know why.
Which is funny because English is descended from German. So
yeah. Well, no. For the most part, it comes from
Old High German.
No, from Frisian, which is spoken in the northern part of the Netherlands.
It's a bit convoluted, but I think today Frisian is the closest to the Old English. Of course, modern English has a whole lot of influence from the Latin-based vernacular, like French and such. Yeah.
At any rate, I think
again, we need to move on, otherwise we won't get to the end.
Different sort of evolution.
Yeah.
We should this probably seems a bit unclear for now, and it reflects the fact that biologists often have difficulty determining whether two structures or genetic sequences are homologous. But let me first sketch a few clear-cut basics for...
Just a flat lie. Not even true. I mean, like, maybe if we're looking at like two, like a pair of sister species, and you're trying to figure out if like a mutation that occurred that is in both, occurred as the result of being shared by their common ancestor, or was independently developed in them separately. Like, okay, maybe, but like, aside from that, it's really not that hard typically to figure out homology for most things. It isn't.
I like how he's now pulled up a drawing from a fashion designer. Weirdly, the girl's in her underwear, but I mean, it's
they haven't drawn on her pants yet.
Yeah, it's as if just dinosaurs went out of fashion 55 million years ago. It's no longer fashionable for large animals.
You're so funny.
How does this guy get his pictures for his shows? I mean,
he's just like dangling keys in front of you. The words he says don't really matter. You just have to follow the dangling keys.
It's distracting, and I wonder if that's on purpose or not. Just curious.
For you to help explain the idea of homology. It all starts with chapter 13 in Darwin's On the Origin of Species, which bears the title The Mutual Affinities of Organic Beings.
It all starts in the last chapter.
In that chapter, Darwin essentially claimed that similar anatomical structures in different animals offer significant support for his theory. For example, when you look at the forelimbs of these 6 creatures, you'll find that while they may look different, they still share the same fundamental structure. This is a case of homology, and according to Darwin, supports the hypothesis that all life forms have evolved from one common ancestor.
So pause for a second. So what he's about to set up a bait and switch, and here's what it is. We're calling it. On Dapper's show, this would be a drink trigger. So what he's about to do is he's claiming that Darwin is saying that these are homologous, therefore it's evidence for common ancestry. Now, in reality, the argument is not real. That's not that circular, obviously. In reality, the argument is the best explanation for all of these organisms having the same structure is that it's descended from a common ancestor. That's the argument that Darwin was making. And the evidence that we can then marshal in support of that is, one, the morphology of all the structures is the same. It's humerus, radius, ulna, carpals, metacarpals, phalanges, right?
Yeah. And also the pattern of these the similarities and differences correspond to a twin-nested hierarchy, which was first described by Linnaeus,
a creationist, 100 years before Darwin. We have to remember, Linnaeus came up with the nested hierarchy way before anybody was talking about evolution. This was a creationist who came up with it. It was Darwin who provided the mechanism to explain the nested hierarchy, but he did not come up with the nested hierarchy. He borrowed it from Linnaeus. He explicitly says it, I'm pretty sure, in chapter 13. However, so he's not saying these are homologous because which is support for evolution. He's going to say that, which is what the argument Deflate's going to make, I'm pretty sure. Darwin said the fact that these are all the same, that the pattern of similarities and differences between them forms a nested hierarchy. That is the evidence that they are descended from a common ancestor. So maybe there's a little bit of nuance there. So
I think it might be easily explained is because they look at it from the top down, whereas people within evolution tend to look at it from the bottom up.
Right. That's true.
It's probably why this is such a huge thing. Continue?
Yes.
If you've ever watched a YouTube video on evolution or discussed evolution with a friend, chances are those forelimbs got mentioned. Darwin's original argument from homology was concerned with anatomical structures as one could see them with the naked eye. However, the rise of biochemistry in the 20th century has opened up the possibility of investigating homology not only on the anatomical but also on the genetic or molecular level. The idea is basically this, just as...
So, here's the cool thing about that. We now know like all the genes that are involved in building our arms and legs. And wouldn't you know, they're the exact same genes in like all the other tetrapods. Isn't that crazy? It's so wild. I love it. It's great.
There's also many. I think I also discussed like this thing during the gene regulatory networks and body plans episode that we did, and there's also a few genes that are involved in making the patterns for the digits, which is a reaction diffusion system, and there are a few genes involved, and then the same genes are also involved in fish to pattern out the fin rays as well.
Yep. Yeah, so like Hawks, the Hawks gene's like a Sonic Hedgehog, right? Like
Sonic Hedgehog is not in Hawks. Is it
it's a homeobox, not Hawks.
It's a homeobox gene, but not a Hawks gene.
Yes, homeobox, but not Hawks. I misspoke. Sonic Hedgehog is one of the examples of such a gene that is involved in patterning limbs. Not just in all tetrapods, it's involved in like patterning limbs in all vertebrates, and it also is involved in patterning limbs in like arthropods. It's all over the place because like all bilaterians share it. They all share it.
Yeah.
It's a common like Sonic the Hedgehog is often involved in in the development of protrusions. Like if you have a flat
Right.
surface and you have a protrusion, there's a common mechanism that was inherited probably from a common ancestor. Like in the very ancient ancestor, there may be some form of protrusion, and that mechanism got basically co-opted for the development of limbs in vertebrates and limbs in arthropods, like that.
And Dean Wing beat me to it. He says, but Jackson, genes is code, therefore God. And this
How could I have forgotten that?
They all have the same genes, Jackson, because you know that Microsoft PowerPoint, Microsoft Word probably have similar code because it's from the same designer. That's
that's
argument.
true. It's they're just stealing code from each other or borrowing it from the same like code program.
Yeah, the spell check's probably the same.
Similar anatomical structures in different animals point to common ancestry and descent with modification. The same can be said of similar molecular structures in different animals. You've probably heard people say that evolution must be true because we share 99% of our DNA with chimpanzees. It isn't actually true that our DNA is 99% similar to that of chimps, but suffice to say that this is essentially a popular and simplified version of the argument from homology. It's important to know that Darwinian scientists don't just...
He said it's true. He agreed. So you just have to say, well, God just really liked using us to design other primates, I guess, or vice versa.
No, that can't be, Jackson, because God created the chimps before he created humans. So
I guess he made us out of chimp parts, I suppose.
Yes.
Okay. Well, is what it is.
He had those lying around, Jackson. They were handy.
He had some extra little like arms and legs and stuff.
Yeah.
He's like, we got to do something with these. Let's use them.
Well, I already designed the opposable thumb, so
there you go.
Why not?
Human. There you go, Adam. Now you can grab a banana.
There's a convenient tap on the top like this. You can open.
I mean, we all know God's omniscient, so he knew that he was going to create Ray Comfort, so we needed that opposable thumb for the banana.
And it fits in your mouth so
and it
easily.
Fits. Oh, yes. Yes.
It fits in multiple places really easily.
Okay.
Anyway.
Point to the similarity between forelimbs, legs, or this and that gene, and then say, evolution in a random case-by-case kind of fashion. While this may capture how homology
it's not random.
is
Wait, pause. It is ostensibly not random. It is the exact opposite of random. It is totally non-random because it's a nested hierarchy. The pattern of similarities is a nested hierarchy. That's not random. We nest within the hominids, which is within the primates and the mammals and the tetrapods. Where is he getting this idea that it's random? What? Huh?
I'm
sorry.
I'm completely distracted, Jackson, because you just mentioned that the banana fits in the mouth so nicely, and now look what you done made me pause this guy. I mean, not saying anything, but
this is a common. Oh. So sorry.
No, go ahead. Go ahead.
It's a common, like they don't say this in these specific terms, but these guys commonly imply that if you have a random pattern, then a twin nested phylogenetic pattern can always be observed, even within a random pattern. Like they imply that, and that's exactly what. For example, what's his name again? Darny. Like he often uses cars as an example of vehicles like that. Like, you can even see this thing in vehicles as well. Like it's these arguments that they always imply. But of course, no, you cannot do cladistics with cars.
right?
like
Because
you can with
yeah, I mean, if you
life.
want, you can just trade out one brand of screw for a different brand, or a bolt,
Yeah.
or tires,
Yeah.
or whatever. You literally can't do that with organisms. You can't
I'm
just
I'm
make
s-
some kind of chimera.
I'm still the owner of a Mercury and a Ford, and I've been trying to crossbreed the two to get an Etzel, but it's not working.
I mean, I hate to bring it up again. Well, no, I don't. Long story short, was the guy who said that the
Yeah.
platypus is a chimera. So, you know. Anyways,
Dooba.
we can keep going.
Understood and utilized in discussions by the average person, evolutionary biologists have a more
Why does it keep
complex
going back to
understanding
Friends?
of homology. According to them, studying homology is nothing less than the key to mapping out the entire tree of life. Evolutionary biologists
largely,
who
yeah.
study what is called systematics and phylogeny are engrossed in efforts to reconstruct the tree of life. We'll be talking about this a lot from now on, but before we do, there is something that's absolutely crucial to be aware of for our discussion. Something which can easily go forgotten, and it's this. Evolution is not just an abstract idea or a concept. No,
That's
if evolution
true.
is true, if there was one or a few ancestor animals from which all other animals have evolved, then this means that there was one specific way in which this actually happened historically. This is perfectly
also
captured by
true.
Richard Dawkins, who says that there is, after all, one true tree of life, the unique pattern of evolutionary branchings that
Okay, pause.
actually happened. What
Pause. I'm calling the argument, and I know it's very easy to see. He's gonna say that there are like contingencies in certain, or exceptions in certain trees, where instead of having like, oh, we have exactly one true tree of life, aha, well, here's some genes that disagree with each other. Yes, we're aware of this. It really doesn't detract from the fact that phylogenies work, and they allow us to make specific predictions about the evolutionary history of life on Earth. Um, I mean, like, long branch attraction, horizontal gene transfer, incomplete lineage sorting, like all these things.
Add the mixture, yeah.
Yeah, all these things happen. Yeah.
Okay, even if you only look within a group, that even these guys will agree that are related. Like, for example, bears. If you just look at bears, like all bears, they will agree that all bears. Like, I don't think I have seen anybody who will say that different bears are like different kinds. Like, does AIG say that all bears are a kind, or
Yeah,
do you know?
Day. Yeah.
Yes. So but if you look at bears and you look at the genes, like the individual genes, like most will agree on one pattern, but there are a few, like there are occasionally disagreements with individual genes, and this may be due to incomplete lineage sorting, but also maybe due to like ancient hybridization events as well between different species, or at least in the ancestors of these species, where
Right.
okay, there's like a I think if you look up on Google, look up, maybe I can look up something similar, but I cannot show it, probably. Like, look up like a cloudogram, where probably if you look up this on Google, perhaps you can see an image that shows this, where you can see a phylogeny, but instead of like one neat tree, you see like a web almost, or a bushy, like with different branches crossing from one branch to another branch, basically from ancient admixture events or intergressions
And
interbreeding. Yeah.
we also talked about that in the Gibbon's tale.
Mm-hmm.
With regard to Hylobatidae, because the phylogeny of gibbons is very contentious because of how rapidly they diversified from each other, all the different species, and so you get this. It's very difficult to determine which is like the one true tree, because the like consensus is not a lot more than the alternative trees. So anyway, but yeah. I'm sure that's where he's about to go with this. I'm almost certain. We can keep going.
Dawkins means, and rightly so, is that evolution is not just a theoretical concept and that it doesn't really matter how it played out in history. No,
No one said it
evolution
did.
must have unfolded in one specific way, and accordingly, the tree of life has one specific shape, with each branch and node of that tree occupied by a specific organism. That's why the aim of evolutionary biology is to take the idea of evolution and show how it actually played out in real life, or to reconstruct the course evolution actually took in history, and to show where specific organisms sit on the nodes and branches of the tree of life. In principle, the Darwinian argument from homology, coupled with the aspiration to draw up the tree of life, does make sense, and here is why. If it is true that all organisms are ultimately related to each other due to their descent from a common ancestor, then the more genetic and anatomical cross-examinations you run between them, the clearer a picture you get of how all these organisms are related to each other.
And
each comparison should help you crystallize the tree of life, so to speak. Also, and this is absolutely key, if all organisms are related to one another, then all your comparative studies of homology, no matter whether they're rooted in anatomy or genetics, should end up cohering with one another, because they would all uncover parts of one and the same big picture.
Okay, so yes and no, right? Because again, you can have homologous genes in different lineages, and broadly speaking, you'll get a particular set of relationships, right? Especially above like above the species level, it becomes, clearer, and then especially and then as you get higher and higher, the like robustness of the relationships among different groups tends to increase, right? Like, I mean, look at animals, for instance. Even if there's, controversy or debate, whatever, about like the certain set of relationships among species within like a genus, the higher you get taxonomically, the more resolved these issues tend to be. So like it's a fact. Like there are it's as close to just a fact as anything in science as possible to be, that like extant mammals as a group are sister to the sauropsids, the birds and reptiles, right? And then both of these together are sister to amphibia. And then all of that together is sister to lungfish, and so on. Like, this is not up for debate. Homology in terms of morphology and in terms of fossils and genetics all confirm this picture. There's really no debate on that. And I never see creationists really acknowledge that, or not, maybe not creationists, intelligent design advocates. Like, why is the evidence so strong that mammals are sister to sauropsida, and that and everything I just said? Like, why is that? I have to date never seen them address that, not once ever. Maybe I'm not looking in the right place. I just don't understand it.
It is also important to note that among, like, it's often counterintuitive to think about the number of possible answers you have when it comes to phylogeny. Like even with the limited number of species, like if you only have 10 species and you are trying to find the correct phylogeny of them all, there are like millions or even billions of possible answers that you can come up with
just for a handful of species.
Yeah, for a handful of species, and it's even very how do you call it, very amazing that we are even able to find robust phylogenies within the like indefinite number of possibilities within that. Of course, there are a few places where we are still, but the phylogeny is still unresolved. There are still controversies, as you mentioned, regarding the ctenophores position. Like is ctenophores more basal than sponges, or are sponges more basal than the ctenophores? But aside from those, the picture is all pretty clear. Especially when you consider all the other possible answers that you could come up with. It's ridiculous.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
No, it's fake. Fake news. Fake news, Nestle.
Fake. Yeah.
You
can move on.
I have to say, you do pick the best pauses, Jackson.
He's so excited, Peter. He's so happy.
Yeah.
Look at how happy he is.
Again, as Dawkins said, there is after all one true tree of life. Of course, this is not to say that mapping out the tree of life is supposed to be easy, that all comparisons should immediately fit hand in glove with each other, and that it should never be the case that evolutionary biologists will have to make adjustments as they aspire to reconstruct the tree of life. However, it is to say the following: if evolution is true and if all animals go back to one common ancestor, there should emerge from systematics at least an overall tendency towards a unified picture of how evolutionary history played out. Hopefully by now you understand what homology is and what end it serves in reconstructing the tree of life.
Today's phrase of the day is, I have no clue.
Because it's now time to give this whole endeavor...
That's true,
that
yes.
Was 100%
that's
accurate.
True.
That was 100% accurate.
No clue.
Yeah.
I think that summed up his entire video. I have no clue. I mean, that's it. We're done. Pack it up, folks. Show's over early. Also, what the heck was up with the Superman guys? What was up with that?
I have no...
I like ironically self marking humor almost. Yeah.
I don't know what the Superman thing was for. I didn't get it.
It's distraction, Jackson. It's the squirrels. Those are the squirrels in
dangling,
the video.
Dangling keys.
Yes, the dangling keys again. Yeah. Yep, sorry. He got me. I got distracted.
A critical look. Ever since gene sequences began to be used to construct the tree of life, evolutionary biologists have run a wide range of studies in both genetic and anatomical homologies, comparing various genes, proteins, RNA molecules, and anatomical features between different animals. However, the results of these studies have not converged. Instead, each study ends up with its own tree of life, its own picture of how evolutionary history must have played out, depending on the genes, anatomical features, and animals that are being compared.
Peter,
in other words, we don't...
Okay, so that was just a lie. Like, there's nothing to debunk there. There's no evidence he's ever going to bring to substantiate that claim. It was just a lie. He said every single study comes to a different tree of life. There's just no evidence for that. There literally isn't any. He will not substantiate that claim throughout the video.
Again, what he means by that is that, one study, like two studies agree with almost every single node, except for one tiny branch. There's a slightly different placing, and that's a major disagreement. So everything must be wrong.
Right. Again, he's never going to explain why mammals are sister to sauropsids, why these two clades are in amniotes, sister to amphibians, and then lungfish, and then coelacanths. He's not going to do that. It's not in his interest. No intelligent design person has ever done that. Creationists don't care to do it. There's just they don't care. They literally don't care to do it. Nestling's right. It's going to be some extremely minor disagreement. And he's going to use that as like his evidence that everything is upended, which is just dishonest.
For example, you also remember the old for now it's been a few years already, like the ornithoscelida hypothesis. You know, like is it of Saurischia and Ornithischia? We may have a slightly different placing of the three main branches of the dinosaurian tree. Like one group you have the sauropods, and one group the theropods, and one group the ornithischians.
Right.
Traditionally, the theropods are together with the sauropods, but one study proposed perhaps that the theropods are actually a bit more closer to the ornithischians.
Mm-hmm.
And that's like with those minute disagreements, the people like these will inflate. Ironically, not deflate, but inflate to
Thank you.
Disproportions. Zing.
It was a zinger.
Yeah.
All right, we can keep going.
Sorry.
Get one big coherent picture, but several pictures which mutually contradict each other. For example,
pause.
Biologists might...
Oh man, dang it! That picture that was there. The picture in the middle had like 90% of the of agreements between both of the trees. It only disagreed on like a tiny slice here and there, which is honestly extremely representative of the argument, right? There's like
Yeah.
90% agreement between these papers. It's the little tiny percent at the end that there may be slight disagreements over. I think that's just I think that was an accident, but I think it's emblematic.
I can rephrase the argument. Like, imagine you have like again with phylogenies, you can have billions of possible answers, and you're saying like, oh, 2 studies with slightly different methods and slightly different data sets come to very similar answers, but just a few maybe a few disagreements here and there. That already is very significant. But these people will not accept anything but perfection. They will, if anything is, if there is any exception, they will make a big deal out of it. That's basically it. Yeah.
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 Michael Sivanen compared no less than 2,000 genes in 6 animals from various phyla. Clearly, given the breadth and depth of his project, one would have expected that this one study would have also yielded one account of evolutionary history, one tree of life. However,
wait, hold on. Did he say 2,000 genes between 6 animals?
Yes, but he didn't name the animals. He did say different phyla. He didn't name the phyla, and then he comes to a conclusion that they're not related. How are we to figure this out if you don't tell us?
My issue is just that's such an extraordinarily small sample size. Like, yeah, you picked a lot of genes, but why only 6 animals? What the heck?
Did he say 2,000 genes and 6 animals?
I thought that was. I could be wrong. Let me see. Michael Savanin 2.
Let me guess. Is the study over 20 years old or something like that?
I don't. Let's see. Evolutionary implications of horizontal gene transfer. Recent emergence of the modern genetic code.
Hold on. Let me play it again so we can see what he says.
Play it one more time,
2,000 genes in 6 animals from various phyla. Clearly,
Michael Savan. Okay, let me try. He seems to be largely a. Oh wait a second. I found an Evolution News article on Savanin by Casey Luskin. Ooh, let me see. This might be it. Paper. Is this it? Blah 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 blah. Nope, that's not him. 6 of Darwin's doubt. Blah blah blah. Let me try it this way. Oh, it's from Darwin's doubt. Of course it is. Nothing is new. Nothing is ever new in creationism. Good lord. Likewise, 2012 paper. Wait, is this it? I'm trying to find it. Sorry. The New Scientist article cited a study by Michael Savanin. Okay. I'm trying to find it. I'm looking. No, I'm not subscribing. I'm not subscribing. I don't care. That's such a bummer. That is such a massive bummer. It's in why Darwin was wrong about the tree of life. I can't get to the article. Sorry. It's behind a paywall. Article cite a study who studied the relationships. He compared 2,000 genes in 6 animals. His analysis. What? Okay, let's try. So it must have been before 2013. Or sorry, no, it must have been 2009 because it's a 2009 article. So let's try Michael Savanin Cambrian, maybe? Cambrian. I'm sorry, folks. I really just want to find this paper, and I have not seen Jamie E. in the side chat.
No, he's not here yet.
I have not seen him.
But Deflate is very happy that you're looking it up. Look at him. He's so happy that you're looking it up.
He's so excited. He's very happy. Okay. Oh, okay. I found a National Center for Science Education article on it. So the creationists say in Explore Evolution, quote, and this is from Michael Savanin, do the puzzles of conflicting phylogenetic trees or orphans, he's referring to orphan genes, undermine the theory of universal common descent? Most evolutionary biologists say no. Others not so sure. Molecular evolutionist. Oh, sorry, this was not Michael Savanin. This was about Michael Savanin. Molecular evolutionist Michael Savanin of the University of California, Davis argues that, quote, there is no reason to postulate that a last universal common ancestor ever existed. That's from Explore Evolution. However, this is a quote mine, and the original quote from Savanin is, there has been recent discussion that horizontal gene transfer is so frequent that it may never be possible to reconstruct the last common ancestor. However, if biochemical unities could be achieved after speciation events by horizontal gene transfer, then there is no reason to even postulate that a Luca ever existed. If horizontal gene transfer is as common as I am implying, the modern cell could have evolved in multiple parallel lineages. Earliest life could have been truly polyphyletic. Okay, so this is not at all, he's not at all saying that evolution is, or that phylogenetic trees are not producing like consistent nested hierarchies. He is instead saying that horizontal gene transfer is rampant among organisms, or has been rampant. And to that I say, okay, cool. You're quote mining, so good for you. Okay, I think we've wasted enough time on that one.
I'm not sure, but I highly suspect that what he says about 2,000 genes and 6 animals are not about 6 animals. They probably are prokaryotes. Because if it's in regards to horizontal gene transfer, then it's probably prokaryotes.
The problem is I can't seem to find.
I
can't figure out what the paper is. Oh. Well, how could it be 2010? It said it was quoted in a 2009 article. Whole genome comparisons reveals a possible chimeric origin of major zoan assemblage. How funny would it be if Michael Savanin, okay, 2010. Oh, this is it. Okay. The availability of whole genome sequences from multiple metazoan phyla is making it possible to determine their phylogeny. We have found that a sea urchin and human define a clade that excludes a tunicate, contradicting both classical and recent molecular studies that place the tunicate invertebrate in the chordate phylum. Intriguingly, by means of a novel 4-taxa analysis, we have partitioned the 2,000 proteins responsible for this assignment into 2 groups. One group, containing about 40% of the proteins, supports the classical assemblage of the tunicate with vertebrates, while the remaining group places the tunicate outside of the chordate assemblage. The existence of these 2 phylogenetic groups is robustly maintained in 5, 6, and 9 taxa analyses. These results suggest that major horizontal gene transfer events occurred during the emergence of one of the metazoan phyla. The simplest explanation is that the modern tunicate began as a hybrid between a primitive vertebrate and some other organism, perhaps from an extinct and unidentified protostome phylum at a time close to, but after the diversification of the chordates. And he kind of... Hold on a second. Journal of Biological Systems. I've never heard of this journal. Has this been...
I'm also having alarm bells. Like it reminds me of this.
This has been cited by a grand total of 15 people, several of whom are Michael Savanin. Okay. This is a bogus paper.
Yeah.
This is a bogus paper. Okay.
There's also like one other paper, not by the same person, I believe, but it reminds me of this paper published in PNAS, which claims that velvet worms, which claims that
the caterpillar was a velvet worm
are
arthropod.
hybrids of velvet worms.
Yes, I've seen that. That was bananas. Also, I think this is kind of in that same vein because this is bogus. Okay, so 3, they quote it as the third one, or that's the third. Has been questioned. Okay, so let's search for. Oh, that's too many. Okay. I found a paper that quotes it that has a fair number of citations. And it's cited exactly one time, it looks like, in the paper. And just to say that that studies have claimed evidence of horizontal gene transfer among animals, but that's it. It seems like that was the only time it was cited. Fascinating. Okay. So it looks like no one has taken that paper seriously in the 14 years. It's not 2022 anymore. In the 14 years that it's been around, no one has taken it seriously. Okay, that tracks.
Funny you should say that. It's not 2022 anymore. I discovered today that in the outro, it's still on 2022. I did not know that.
Oh.
I have updated it. I have a 2023 version. I haven't updated it to 2024 yet, but it still says in the outro 2022. Now I'm going to make everyone watch the entire commercial until they get to the point where it says 2022. See how I did that?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, all have to watch whether or not I'm telling the truth.
Oh, here. Okay, so the paper that cites it kind of argues it's wrong. It says, until now, however, there has been a lack of clear evidence supporting the horizontal gene transfer of encoding sequences in vertebrates. So, wait, 60. Oh, wait, 65. Okay, wait, no, that was number 3. Okay. Well, okay, they just say it once. They say, okay, so 65, it has been claimed that modern tunicates may be of a hybrid or chimeric origin. Is outside of the scope of this review. Okay, so he doesn't even take a position on it. Okay. So it just seems like no one takes this paper seriously. It seems like almost no one has cited it in the 14 years that it's been around. And no one I'm sorry I wasted so much time on this, guys. I was just very curious about this, but the
only thing I can find about 2000 genes is like an article on the Evolution News by Luskin.
This is the paper.
Which mentions that article mentions 2000 genes, but then it refers to a New Scientist article which has a subscription
well,
thing.
Here. No, it's right here in the side chat.
Oh, really? Oh.
Yeah, there you go. That's the paper.
That's the paper with 2000 genes. All right.
Yeah.
All right. Oh. All right.
So what they used was so they did several different taxa analyses. They did so one that was 5 was a human, sea urchin, tunicate, fruit fly, and Caenorhabditis elegans. Anyway, we can move on. I think we've spent a lot of time on this.
Yeah.
It's a bogus study. Nobody agrees with it. Okay.
Given the breadth and depth of his project, one would have expected that this one study would have also yielded one account of evolutionary history, one tree of life. However, here is what the New Scientist reported. In theory, he, Sivanen, should have been able to use the gene sequences to construct an evolutionary tree showing the relationships between the 6 animals. He failed The problem was that different genes told contradictory evolutionary stories. Not only
Again,
did
I think we
Sivan
should
and
here pause for a moment. So again, I think the major issue with this is that he used 6 animals. I think the issue is he used such incredibly divergent organisms, and that very likely like caused some methodological issues, like probably like long branch attraction. It just seems like yeah, alarm bells went off immediately when he said it was between only 6 organisms. That seems somebody's like roboting.
Yeah,
Oh no, am I doing it again?
I
Nestle,
think so.
your mic is disconnecting.
3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Okay. Yeah. It just seems like it's. I think that's problematic that he picked 6 whole or only 6 organisms for this relationship. Okay. Anyway, we can keep going.
himself have no problem admitting his failure, but he also moved on to challenge the Darwinian paradigm itself by saying that we've just annihilated the tree of life. It's not a tree anymore, it's a different topology entirely. What would Darwin have made of that? Now, Sivanen's study is not...
Pause. Okay, so Sivanen is involved in horizontal gene transfer stuff. So when he says that, he's not saying... Or what he's not saying is that evolution is false. He's saying that the simple bifurcating tree pattern that Darwin expected is not a perfect representation of life, which, as we already said earlier, is true. It isn't a perfect representation. We all agree on that. But trying to use that to say, therefore, evolution is false is just dishonest. We can keep going.
The exception. The New Scientist pointed out that many biologists now argue that the tree concept is obsolete and needs to be discarded. The evolution of animals and plants isn't exactly tree-like. Accordingly, the magazine went on to describe the Darwinian project of mapping out the tree of life as lying in tatters, torn to pieces by an onslaught of negative evidence. Other magazines have offered the same conclusion. Trends in Ecology and Evolution has pointed out that evolutionary trees from different genes often have conflicting branching patterns, and the Biological Reviews has acknowledged that phylogenetic conflict is common and frequently the norm rather than the exception.
Okay, pause. Okay, again, this is like among species predominantly, not among higher branching patterns typically. Well, it can, depending on what we're looking at specifically. But typically it is not between higher order branches. But also, he's again just he's lying by omission when he says that, or he's trying to describe that, like, oh, evolution predicts a perfect tree-like pattern, and we don't have a perfect tree-like pattern, therefore evolution's false. No, evolution does not necessarily predict in all cases a perfect tree-like nested hierarchy. It just doesn't, right? And so trying to say, well, evolution's wrong because we don't have a perfect nested hierarchy you're not doing anything to evolution. You're just not. You've completely missed the point.
And then maybe, like that again, with regard to incomplete lineage sorting, there may be cases where 3 or more lineages like diverged from each other at almost the same time, and in those situations, you cannot say or you cannot determine which one is closer to the other one. And probably the best example I can give is the Neo-Avians. And they appear to have been they have a rapid divergence with several lineages diverging at almost the same time.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Wow says this guy makes arguments like long story short. Yes. Well, they both are cribbing
it's the same. Yeah.
Stephen Meyer in Darwin's Doubt. So yes, it is the same arguments because all like anti-evolution stuff is incestuous. It always goes back to just a handful of people.
Yeah.
So
it's also like, did you also notice the cover of the New Scientist article that he showed in the video, Jackson?
I don't think so. What did it look like?
Okay. Peter, can you go back a bit? Sorry about that. Maybe you can show the New Scientist.
It's going to be hard to find, but
a little bit.
A little bit
more. That's how he eats the banana. little bit more.
A little bit more.
Yeah, it jumps, so it might be
Little bit
possible
louder,
that
yeah.
it jumps over it.
It jumps over maybe.
Press play.
I think
Yeah, press play.
The Darwinian paradigm itself by saying that we've just annihilated the tree of life. It's not a tree anymore, it's a different topology entirely. What would Darwin have made of that? Now, Sivanen's study
I
is
think you
not the
didn't focus
exception.
on- No, I
don't think we've-
the new
yeah, we haven't gone
scientist
far enough.
pointed
You
out
have to go back further. Sorry about that. We have to
Sorry,
go back
Peter.
further.
Gotta go back a little
Yeah.
bit, a little bit more, a little bit more. Oh, there it was.
There it was. Yes.
Pause or play. Press
no.
play. Nope. Play.
I can't get it exactly
have
to that
expected
point.
that this one
That's fine,
study would
yeah.
have also yielded one account of evolutionary history, one tree of life. However, here is what the new science
There we go. That is.
Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's horizontal gene transfer is what it's showing.
Yeah, but this is also the New Scientist article that we mentioned in, like, we did one video on horizontal gene transfer,
Yeah.
and that was like, and we also included a section regarding a debacle that unfolded when a New Scientist published this article in, I think it was 2009. And again, the content of the article was basically all about horizontal gene transfer, but of course the cover tells a very different and misleading story. And that's also, and again, we are still talking about this article to this day, over like 15 years later by now.
So you know what's funny? In sort of in the same vein as that, just today actually, I got the or I'm sure we all did if we're subscribed. The oh no, where is it? The science table of contents for today, right? So if you get it, one of the things is an article by Elizabeth Panisi that's titled "Tiny Fossils Upend Timeline of Multicellular Life," and I was very angry when I read that because the subtitle or summary, whatever, is "Eukaryotes organized into multicellular forms 1.6 billion years ago." Now, there's nothing that's not unusual. That's actually kind of late. It's like we've known for decades now that eukaryotes originated like 1.8 to 2 billion years ago, something like that.
The most common answers I found is like somewhere around 2.1 and 1.8. Yeah.
Right, yeah, somewhere around in
there.
there, yeah. And so
Yeah.
to say, so when I saw that title, I got really mad. So I clicked on it, which it's clickbait, I guess. And then the actual title of the article itself is "Microbes that gave rise to all plants and animals became multicellular 1.6 billion years ago, tiny fossils reveal." Now that's fine. That's a perfectly fine title, but it just made me really mad that the like there's the clickbaity title and then there's the actual title of the article. I don't know. It just made me mad. Okay, anyway, we can keep going.
reported. In theory, he, Sivanen, should have been able to use the gene sequences to construct an evolutionary tree showing the relationships between the 6 animals. He failed. The problem was that different genes told contradictory evolutionary stories. Not only did Sivanen himself have no problem admitting his failure, but he also moved on to challenge the Darwinian paradigm itself by saying that we've just annihilated the tree of life. It's not a tree anymore, it's a different topology entirely. What would Darwin have made of that? Now, Sivanen's study is not the exception. The New Scientist pointed out that many biologists now argue that the tree concept is obsolete and needs to be discarded. The evolution of animals and plants isn't exactly tree-like. Accordingly, the magazine went on to describe the Darwinian project of mapping.
We've already agreed that this is true. So
of life as lying in tatters, torn to pieces by an onslaught of negative evidence. Other magazines have offered the same conclusion. Trends in Ecology and Evolution has pointed out that evolutionary trees from different genes often have conflicting branching patterns, and the Biological Reviews has acknowledged that phylogenetic conflict is common and frequently the norm rather than the exception. Antonis Rokas, who is considered a leading figure in genetic homology, concluded that despite the amount of data and breadth of taxa analyzed, relationships among most phyla remain unresolved. He went on to state that the complete and accurate tree of life remains an elusive goal. So far, we've only looked at the picture of the tree of life that emerges from studies that are gene-based. However, the argument from homology concerns not just genetic but also morphological similarities in different animals, as we said in the beginning. And if it's true that all organisms are related, then the conclusions drawn from genetic homology should be congruent with those drawn from morphological similarities, right? Or to use an analogy, you can put the jigsaw puzzle together based on the shape of the pieces or their colors, and it doesn't matter whether you take this or that route or even switch between them. In the end, the pieces will fit because they are part of one and the same big picture. However, that's exactly what you don't get when it comes to molecular and morphological homologies. Instead, as was noted in Science, animal relationships derived from these new molecular data sometimes are very different from those implied by older classical evaluations.
Okay, this is true. This is true because in some cases, right, like there was confusion between homology and analogy because there was no molecular data for researchers to use to figure out which was homology and which was analogy. So yes, in some cases, you could have molecular data that was very different from the older morphological data. One very famous example is the relationship between arthropods and annelids, the segmented worms. It was long thought that segmented worms would be like the sister group to like Panarthropoda, basically.
Yeah,
It was thought that
at first we had the arthropods, the velvet worms, and the tardigrades are the Panarthropoda. Yeah, and then you had supposedly the annelids next to them.
right. That was like they were thought to be sister groups, but it turns out, based on molecular data, no, actually annelids are way away. They're in a totally different, like, mega group of phyla that's
But
separate.
they are still actizozoans, right? The annelids, or
No, they're
are they?
Lophotrochozoans or
Oh, really?
spiralians. Sorry, the
Spiralians.
yeah. So the annelids are spiralians. Actually, I think technically they are. I think Lophotrochozoans because that's a subset of spiralians. But the panarthropods are the ecdysozoans. So the annelids are actually quite a ways away, and that's fine, right? I mean that's fine. Science advanced. We got better data, and that helped us get a better picture of the world. And I'm sure to creationists, that's bad because, as Peter likes to say, the truth changed, but with the Bible, the truth never changes. So,
Yeah, right. It's
in all fairness, this also is kind of like that, and I'll channel James Downer for a second. 1998. So,
yeah, that's almost one whole Jackson ago. Almost one whole Jackson.
It reminds again. I said it a moment ago. They accept nothing less than perfection, and so
Right.
any update they will see that as a failure.
yes.
And this reminds me of a beautiful segment within a poem by Tim Minchin. I think you know this. Like it's called Storm by Tim Minchin, and he's
Okay.
in that sentence he says this. Science adjusts its views based on what's observed. Faith is the denial of preservation, so that belief may be preserved.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
very that sums this up very neatly, I think.
It sure does. Oh, I do also want to point out one final note before we move on. Birds were considered part of sauropsids, and they were sister to mammals as amniotes, and then amniotes are sister to amphibia. That hasn't changed. Like freaking Huxley, and them were were referencing that relationship back in the late 1800s. That has not changed. So that's another thing that's like this relationship just hasn't changed among them in over 100 years. So I don't know how Deflate would explain that. I genuinely don't, but whatever.
The people in chat are still one of the best things that I've ever seen you do is your debate with Matt Powell, in which he said,
Oh no,
the air in space is different.
no,
The sun
it
is
was
on
so
fire.
bad.
The sun is on fire.
It was so bad.
Yeah.
Okay.
Like before you talked to him, did you already know what Matt was like, or
I hadn't talked to him at that point. That was literally my first interaction with him. Was that debate?
It was also I think he only went on one other channel before that. The guy with the flat cap, not me, the other guy with the flat cap.
So it was before his infamy, basically, and you didn't.
That was actually
no.
what got him started.
Yeah. No.
That was what got him started.
Yeah,
because he said atheists sit around all day and drink soda, and then a bunch of atheists. He talked to was it Raging Atheist? I think.
No. I names on the tip of my tongue. He's not. It wasn't an atheist channel. The guy's not an atheist. I keep forgetting it. Always.
So
was
you're
a flat
trying
cap.
to say,
He
Jackson, it was
made-
you who
It was me. I catapulted him to stardom. Yes.
He got noticed because in the first interview he said that he would like homosexuals to be executed by the state. That basically
He did say that also.
Yeah. So, and that's where other people started inviting him. And he did make that stupid claim that atheists drink soda, and then people started looking up his channel. And guess what? He did a soda commercial on his channel. It's still there today. Mountain Dew.
RJ, I agree. I also like drinking iced tea. Although right now I'm drinking a Fanta. Which I also drank on that show.
Every accusation is a confession.
That's very fair. That's yeah.
And
anyway, we can keep going.
If you look at that commercial, it is very, very bromance, that commercial. Just saying.
Yes,
Of
every
morphology.
accusation
Similarly,
is a confession.
nature observed that evolutionary trees constructed by studying biological molecules often don't resemble those drawn up from morphology. So we've looked at comparisons of trees based upon different genes and comparisons between trees based upon genes versus morphology. The one option that is missing is the comparison between trees based upon morphological features only. Note that in contrast to genetic homology,
it's kind of weird that he says that, because he did show the pictures of all the hands that diverged into,
right.
And you then said those are all in the exact same genes. It's not entirely true what he said there.
He doesn't like that. Okay, well, I mean, in fairness, all the arguments he has made, or he has made exactly one argument predicated on like an actual study. And that was the Savanen paper, which it looks like what they did was they just rooted around for like the most inflammatory paper they could find. And, they found it. Sure. Okay, whatever. But of course they ignored the consensus on this issue, because of course they did. Why would they look at the consensus of research? It's just easier to lie. And then after they looked at one inflammatory paper, one anti-consensus paper, he just kind of said, yes, a lot of times papers will have disagreements over the phylogenetic placement of certain things, which, okay, but are you going to be more specific than that? And he didn't. He just kind of like threw it and said, okay, here you go. And then rushed off to the next thing, in which he quoted a historical account of the switchover from building phylogenies based on morphology and development to ones based on genetics, which said that when we got better data, some of our phylogenies changed. but he didn't really pursue it at all. He just kind of said, well, something's changed, which, yeah, okay. Like, I'm just, so far, his arguments have either been extraordinarily vague or they went out of their way to find a paper that like disagrees with the consensus. So this is a really bad set of arguments.
I could give actually a better example. Like, for example, if you look at the genes of eukaryotes, like the ancestral genes, you see that like some of them are more similar to those in archaea, and others are more similar to those in bacteria, and that reflects the endosymbiosis that was responsible for the origins of eukaryotes. And that is that is a process that was proposed as an alternative to the traditional view of, like when Lynn Margulis proposed the endosymbiosis. It was like she was like an outsider basically to
Right.
the evolutionary community by that point. That they could have used that example for that point, but they didn't. They had to go all the way to this very odd paper, but yeah, it's very strange.
Yeah, I mean, the problem, Nestlig, is you're looking at it from an honest perspective, and Deflate is not. So, there's that. Yeah. Anyway, we can keep going.
The investigation of morphological homology is as old as the theory of evolution itself, as it was one of Darwin's key arguments for his theory. So clearly, given that this endeavor is over 160 years old, one should expect that here at least, coherence and clarity about the one tree of life would be within reach. Yet even in this case, the records are no better than everything we've seen so far. That's why zoologists...
Wait, pause. Wait a second. This is... He himself rebutted this idea literally like 30 seconds earlier. Remember when he said, remember when Deflate said that trees based on morphology were replaced by trees based on genetics and that there was some conflict? Well, the trees based on morphology were the things that Darwin used. So he has already said that they were replaced. So I don't know why he's coming back around and saying, like, hey, remember that thing I just said was replaced? Well, do you think it stayed the same for 200 years? No, you just said it was replaced. Like, you just said that.
And we're back to
Who wrote your script?
We're back to the argument the Bible never changes, and science does. It changes all the time because there's new evidence.
Yeah.
Which is a bad thing.
Who wrote his script? Because, like, my goodness.
Like there were a few like old proposed groups that were like based on very very not random, but superficial. That's the term I'm looking for. Superficial features, like, for example, like a good example I can give is the Edentata group, where the placental mammals without teeth, basically,
right?
Or the nearly
or
toothless.
Insectivora.
Yeah, exactly. Like these were very superficial claims, but now, like, after molecular phylogeny came in, and now the group that we have, we can actually see some noticeable morphological similarities, like in the Afrotheres. That's one of the new groups.
Mm-hmm.
Although right now it's already more like a few decades old by now, the Afrotheria. I don't know when was Afrotheria proposed. I don't remember. It's probably over a decade. Yeah, over a decade.
Yeah,
at least.
It's been a couple decades now. Yeah.
But
like, and I mean, we already.
Within Afrotheria, we can even notice some morphological similarities. Like they have a very large number of lumbar vertebrae, I believe. Yeah.
Or like in the panungulates, the hyrax, elephant, and manatees, they have very, very similar dentition. Like they've always been together. They were considered like ungulates or whatever before, but they're very similar. They're always like together. And so when Afro theory was proposed, they stayed together, all three of them. And I think there was a paper that came out that said like penungulata may never be resolved, wasn't it? Because like I think it was something like incomplete lineage sorting is like so rampant among all three.
It's probably the case that the bats, like the bats, the fairway, like the group that includes the carnivores and pangolins, and then also the two groups of alt-toed and even-toed ungulus. I think those four groups like simultaneously diverged from each other, almost. Yeah.
That's another pretty close one. I tend to see Scrotifera more nowadays, but it's not with much more support than like Pegasopherae. It's like they're very, very close to each other in terms of
it's pretty clear that the Ulipotyphla diverged first from the rest of the Laurasiatarians. Yes.
Right. Yeah. So it is what it is.
No, I think we need to move on again. Like, how long do we still have in the video?
4 minutes.
We can do it. I believe in us.
You can do it. Yes.
Yeah, you think so?
Scientists from St. Andrews and Oxford University state that, taken together, modern re-evaluations of traditional evidence support different and mutually exclusive subsets of relations. So, systematics, no matter whether they're concerned with genetics, morphology, or both, consistently yield mutually contradictory trees of life, which is why it's been said that in point of fact there exists no such thing as the traditional textbook phylogeny. A diversity of different schemes can be found. I said at the beginning that Darwinists have resorted to studies of genetic or molecular homology, partly because they realized that
the quote he just gave with the different views can be found. I actually looked up the original citation, and the original quote is actually slightly different. It refers to it mentions the textbook view, but it actually refers to literal textbooks, during the time when this paper was published. It was from 2002, I believe, or let's see here. From the year 2000. It was published in the year 2000. Also in the Netherlands, actually, also ironically published in the Netherlands. But it refers to the old, like even back then, the textbooks were already out of date, and they say that the old textbooks are wrong. We are now updating our views based on new data. That's basically what it says. And that already refers to things that were all out of date even in the year 2000.
Yeah. How embarrassing.
fossil record did not confirm evolutionary theory. For example, evolutionary biologist Jerry Coyne says that now we have a powerful new and independent way to establish ancestry. We can look directly at the genes themselves by sequencing the DNA of various species and measuring how similar these sequences are. We can reconstruct their evolutionary relationships. Essentially, what he means by independent is independent of the fossil record, which has challenged evolutionary theory due to its lack of transitional forms. Richard Dawkins takes an even more outspoken stance, as he bluntly states that we don't need fossils. The case for evolution is watertight without them. Now, these statements have a rather strange aftertaste, as they basically communicate that molecular evidence is more important than evidence from the fossil record. In other words, they imply that the work of molecular biologists is more valid than the work of paleontologists. Yet, oddly enough, evolutionary biologists are actually...
So again, he's just lying. Deflate is making a value judgment about the relative concreteness of the evidence from genetics versus from paleontology. What Dawkins is saying, I feel like we've had to explain this quote like 10 different times. Dawkins is right in that quote that the evidence from molecular genetics alone indicates that evolution is true. It indicates that the nested hierarchical relationships of life exist. They're extremely obvious. I mean, like, you could just look at endogenous retroviruses alone and build up a pattern of nested hierarchies, like just them, nothing else. And so Dawkins is right. He's correct in saying that you would only need genetics to demonstrate the nested hierarchy. What Deflate is taking that to mean, apparently, is that therefore we don't need fossils, or that fossils are unimportant. That's not what he said.
He said it was more important than the fossil record.
It's like, and that doesn't make any sense. No one's making a judgment about the relative importance of these things. That's not what he's saying. You can also make the case for evolution from fossils, which Darwin did also.
It was also in a context that he said that, because they were talking about,
correct.
There was a long talk about fossils, and then he said, but we don't need the fossils because genetics alone confirms it. This was
right, because
in that conversation.
The greatest,
yeah.
Well, that book that quote came from, The Greatest Show on Earth, has 2 chapters on fossils.
Mm-hmm.
It has one on transitional fossils among animals broadly, and then one just on hominin transitions. So for Deflate to be like, oh, he's saying paleontology doesn't matter. No, you're again quote mining from a book that has 2 chapters on paleontology.
Yeah, it's a quote mine.
Good Lord.
You can say that, without this piece of evidence, we still have a pretty solid case, but that does not imply that the other piece of evidence is unimportant.
Right.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it fits in the conversation. So this is a pure quote mine and ripped completely out of context in order to make that claim that is what he implied, because that's, I think, the opposite of what he implied. But never mind.
Yep.
We have
I agree.
2.5 minutes.
We can do it.
Can we do it?
Forced to depend on the science of paleontology when trying to determining the timing of evolutionary history. In light of this, Dawkins' dismissive statement about fossils is quite awkward and raises the question of whether with his overconfident rhetoric, he's trying to cover up for the evidential weaknesses plaguing evolutionary theory. But what's even more awkward is this. The very aim of neo-Darwinists in studying genetic homology was to establish evidential support for evolution and to draw up the tree of life independently and without the need of the fossil record. Yet this project has manifestly failed, and it has failed even though supposedly without those fossils, the case for evolution is watertight. However, instead of homology and phylogenetic studies yielding one coherent picture of how evolutionary relationships played out in actual history, there have emerged all sorts of mutually contradictory and exclusive scenarios, so much so in fact that scientists speak of the annihilation of the tree of life.
Pause
now,
for a second. Never mind. So those pictures that he showed were not mutually contradictory. Like, he keeps showing this tree with little bits cut off, and he keeps saying that these are mutually contradictory, but they aren't. They objectively aren't.
He also shows puzzles that are partially completed but have no holes in them. If you want to make a comparison, we have a puzzle where we don't have all the puzzle pieces. There are tons of holes in it. It's not a fair comparison. You make it sound that the fossils that we have should, all of the holes should be filled, which isn't the case. And we probably may not fill them ever. It's
right. I mean, it seems like the image he's providing is not really doing what he wants it to, because it provides consensus up to like the end branches, which is what we were saying earlier. We were like, yeah, there may be contentions about the species relationships, but the broader relationships are intact. And the picture he keeps showing is that the very tips are in contention, but the broader picture is intact. So it's like, did you think these pictures through? They're not making the argument for you. They're really not helping you. As RJ points out, Lucas speaks only in the abstract. not with actual examples. He likely knows no more of that than he does of the year of the Savannan paper. Yeah, he didn't provide us like at any point actual examples, right? We have had one single study so far, and it was a crank study. That's it. That's all he's given us, and lots of quote lines. So,
Mhm.
I mean, he's an intelligent design person who doesn't do his own research. He's just reading, Stephen Meyer and quote mining all the same people Stephen Meyer quote mined, 11 years ago now. So,
Are you
and
implying, Jackson, that people like him should do work?
I am. I'm not just implying it. I'm outright stating it. As we pointed out in the I think it was in the Professor Dave video, and I think also in a different video that we did, I think it was Darwin's Confidence. Um like one of the things that Stephen Meyer says is he quotes a like 1990 paper, the like Bowring et al., that says the base of the Cambrian or the first epoch of the Cambrian is like 5 million years or something like that. And Meyer takes that to mean that the Cambrian explosion itself is 5 million years. Isn't that right, Neslig? He says like
Oh,
the
so I didn't catch the last sentence. Sorry,
well,
can you
he
repeat
says
that?
like Meyer quotes the Bowring et al. Paper as saying the base of the
Mhm.
Cambrian is here. So then like the Cambrian explosion he says is like 5 to 6 million years. And that was from
Yes.
1990. And Meyer was repeating it in 2013. And then you have creationists today repeating that. So it's like
Yeah,
it's
yeah. It's a perpetual
30, 34 years out of date.
self-feedback, yeah. It's a
Yeah.
perpetually sustaining feedback loop.
Yeah, they're just going to repeat it till the end of time because why do research when you can just lie or copy slavishly from somebody else? What's the point of doing research?
Mhm.
I don't know.
1 minute.
He's still thinking about that
32
banana.
Yeah, 1 minute 32 left.
Okay.
Now, given that resorting to genetic homology and constructing the tree of animal relationships was supposed to make up for the fact that the fossil record...
I got a terrible flashback. That was a part from the video that Nephilim Free used to show that there are actual machines inside the cells because it was animated and it looked like machines. And he even introduced it as an animation. And then I asked him if he could tell me what an animation was, and he got so mad that I was no longer allowed on his channel. That was a terrible flashback.
Did he really believe? Did he really
Yes.
believe it was like a live video, a
He-
live recording?
No, it was animated, but it was an actual depiction of what goes on in the cell, and it looked. He had some
that's
parts.
That's damning. That's stupid.
Yeah, he had some parts that where it looked like things were walking along a roadway.
Yeah, the Kinesins. Yeah.
Yeah. But I like as stupid as Nephilim Free can be, I don't fault him for this thing. Like it's a common misconception that things work like machines at the molecular level. It's a common misconception. I won't fault him for that. But anyway, we can make it. We can make it to the end of the video.
Okay. Let's see.
Challenges evolutionary theory, and given that the Tree of Life project failed, we're now back to face the hard facts of paleontology. Or to put it differently, if the hard facts of paleontology oppose the notion of there being a Tree of Life, and if that supposed Tree of Life cannot be independently established by genetic homologies, well, what evidence for Darwin's Tree of Life are we left with? To put it bluntly, Dawkins's claim that there is, after all, one true tree of life simply isn't supported by the evidence. To this day, studies in homology based on certain genes or RNA molecules and anatomical traits continue. And to this day, these studies fail to offer us one coherent picture of...
Wait a second. Like, I do think it's funny that he says they continue. It's like, yeah, because you're just wrong. Because nothing you say is true or accurate. All you do is quote mine, and your little assault on the field of genetics has utterly failed, and everyone ignores you because of it. Like, yeah, of course geneticists are going to keep doing what they're doing because what they do works.
Science continue to do science. Big shock.
And no one pays attention to well, no one who actually does science pays attention to Deflate because no one cares what he thinks, or Stephen Meyer or Michael Behe or any of these guys because they're all loons and they get paid to lie. So anyway, I think that's really the end of it.
Even as meta-studies are conducted whose goal it is to integrate several studies into one big picture. In other words, after 160 years of studying anatomical homologies and around 60 years of studying genetic homologies, Darwinists have still failed to tell us what the tree of life actually looks like. What this means is that those who study homology simply assume evolution to be true, but they've never actually demonstrated that the ancestral evolutionary relationships between different organisms are real. Check out this playlist over here to delve deeper into the basics of intelligent design.
Okay, so that's the end of it. But also, did he just say, like, induction does not matter? Did he just say that you cannot infer relationships, like, at all?
I have to say,
his last sentence,
I missed the last few seconds because I have my dog right here, and he let something loose that is probably going. All the plants in my house are going to die right now.
Well, so the last thing that he said was, "We have not seen the common ancestor." That was the last thing he said, which is a wild statement to end on, because I don't think anybody expects that, like, we can only build a phylogeny if we have direct visual observation of the common ancestor. Like, that's an insane thing to say.
Jackson, you have to have all the puzzle pieces, because otherwise the Bible is still true, because that has all the puzzle pieces, how we got here to where we are today.
Oh.
So, and that has never changed. That's it, Jackson. So, yeah, if you don't have...
That's true.
It's. I mean, I'm going to quote a famous YouTuber, RJ Downard, origins or bust.
That's true.
It's always a thing. It's always where we get. You got there yesterday, even though you said at the start of the show, that's not what we're going to talk about. We're going to talk about evolution, and then in the middle of the show. But you don't know anything about abiogenesis, and you could even say that correctly. He said abiogenesis, but...
Well, that's true. He did also kind of try to bring it back around to miracles and whatnot, but, you know, at any rate.
Magic.
Well, we're coming up on... It is literally magic. Pure freaking magic. As we're about to close the show, I did... release the Blind Cavefish's Tale just before we went live, so you guys should all go watch that and leave comments and whatnot and enjoy it.
And if you haven't seen the debate yesterday, go watch the debate from conversation from yesterday. And if you think that was funny, then tune in on Monday, 2 p.m. U.S. Central, 9 p.m. Central European Time. I'm going to ask him everything about his beliefs, not evolution, but why he believes what he believes and why he thinks that he then needs to deny everything else. I'm curious about that.
Yeah. Yeah, nice. Yeah, so it's going to be fun. Well, that was a hoot and a half, as always. Thank you, everybody in the live chat. For watching. Thank you, Nestle and Peter, for being here, as always.
Anytime.
My pleasure.
Oh, no, the pleasure is all mine. Oh. And we will see all of you next time. So bye, everybody.
Bye, everyone.